All right, welcome to the Unbroken Ground. My name is Paul. This is season 2, episode 26. That means we're halfway through the year of 52 weeks. That's episode 26. I was gonna sing "Halfway There" by Bon Jovi, "Living on a Prayer," but I'm gonna spare you from that. I'm not going to do that. Instead, just going to say, man, this is good times. I don't know how long I'll do the podcast, but year and a half now. So 52 episodes plus some episodes from last year that weren't the weekly episodes. So more than that, and 26 already this year. So this is an episode titled "Old." And it's going to continue to be in the theme of community if you listened to last week, but it'll be a little bit different too, and just kind of talking through what it means to be to follow Christ, and what the goal is when you think about discipleship. Just thinking through those. Don't have a final point yet. Obviously, still working through things in my head, even as I do this podcast. So let's jump in and let's think about what it means to be old. So, I don't want to, not really talking about just like aging necessarily, like, oh goodness, my body got old or something like that. Not really what I'm referencing or wanting to talk about, but rather I've had this unique spiritual experience over the past kind of couple of weeks. I've been reading through a devotion that I picked up, and I don't remember when I picked up this devotion, but it's called the Book of Days, and it's about the new rebellion. And the way that I picture it is that it's like a pep rally. That may not be a reference that everybody gets. So, but it's like an emotionally charged, let's go take the hill, motivational speech every morning. This is all about you, and God's got great things for you. And like this morning, it was about King Josiah, and how Josiah decided that he was going to follow in the way of his father David, and he got rid of all of the high places and turned the whole nation back to God, and the person who wrote the devotion, and I don't even know who wrote them, or if there's like an editing team or what, but the person who wrote that was like, and you can too, you can change the whole nation, and I'm just like, I mean, I love your passion, I love your vision, but that's not where I'm at. That's not what I got old. Like I think I want like the I want the discipleship book that's written by the old grizzly veteran. The kind of they're a little cynical, they walk with a limp, and they've seen some things. And so they don't necessarily have that nothing will ever fail. You can do everything. Not that I'm trying to say you can't do everything in Christ. You can. But there's a reality that happens when you experience life, is that you go through both good times and very hard times. And so there is the fact that you, in different stages of your life, you need that encouragement and that type of discipleship that comes from both angles, or all angles. Like I talked about last week with community, like we need the older generation to be pulling us along, guiding us, giving us encouragement and showing us what it means to follow Christ, and then we need our peers that are kind of like horizontal to us that we're following with, and then we also need to be looking to say who are we bringing along. But I think that it just has struck me that we've done. There's been two things that really have, at least two things, maybe more. I don't have an exhaustive list, I'm sure, but there's been at least two things that have really affected the following that we do for the older generation. At least two things that come to mind, and one of them is that we are ageist. As a culture, we tend, in the United States specifically, so if you're outside the United States, if this isn't your culture, this may not be as true for you, but it may. We tend to value youth and health and energy as the most important things. In fact, if I looked up the statistics, easy for me to say, if I looked up the stats, I bet we would find that there is a huge amount of money that's spent on looking younger, feeling younger, being younger, reversing aging. We want to be old but not look old. We want to be old but not seem old. We want to grow and live as long as we can, but not if we're going to be old. And once you kind of reach that old, whatever that is, whatever age that is, you lose influence in the world, in church especially. For the vast majority of older people, a lot of times they're not seen as the targets of churches. And so, I'm going to say again, this is some of my experience, but I grew up, in the South. I grew up in a very Baptist place, a very Baptist church. And one of the things that you had to realize is that, so let's not even say that we're trying to explicitly alienate older generation. Let's give the benefit of the doubt. Let's assume the positive intent that is not the heart of what people were doing. But what happens is that the things that we celebrate, and so what people and leadership or marketing or management will tell you, that we will do the things that get recognized, honored, and celebrated. And so in the Baptist world, the way that you knew that you were doing well is that you were increasing your budgets, you were increasing your number of baptisms, and you were increasing the number of buildings, you were doing all these things. You were getting a bigger church congregation. You were baptizing people. You were more people were coming to the faith. And the stark reality of that is that old people only really a lot of times contribute in one way, which is to the budget. Because they, if you're a Baptist and a good Baptist and a true Baptist, then you believe that once saved, always saved. So if they got saved when they were 15 and now they're 75, they're not going to be a new convert. They're not going to get baptized again. They're not. So the outreach, so the eyes of the church, and not wrong. 100% wrong. Not saying this is wrong, but not in a wrong way. But even just as an unbalanced focus went to beginning to be like, well, how do we reach people that are younger? And I think you even saw like the results of some of this thinking is like we've got to have a children's program. We got to have music that young families will appreciate, and so praise and worship music kind of took over. And I think I said this in the community one, but I maybe not. I have said this throughout the podcast. So this is not a new statement, but we really did a disservice to older people by basically telling them that your worship style is the way that you connect with God is less valuable than this new music that we're going to do. And again, this is in the late 90s, early 90s, late 90s, this new music and these new instruments and it's more valuable because it is drawing new families in and it's drawing young families in. And so we're going to do that because and on the positive intent side of things is like more souls means that there's more people that get to know Jesus. But we did it in such a way that often pushed people who were older just to the margins. And then I think like, so the culture is very much against age, against old people, because we want we want to be younger. And I think seeing older people, even, it's like, oh, I don't want to be reminded that I'm going to end up like that. And so like there's so much in the psyche of the culture of like, you got to be younger. You gotta lift more weights, run more miles. You got to eat better. You got to tan. You got to color your hair because you don't want to be old. Old is not what you want to be. And then there's people who embrace it. Some people are like, oh, I'm old. But I think that has really driven a wedge in the community. And then the other thing has been, it's been the political weaponization, let's call it, of young versus old. We as a culture just love when we can create, for whatever reasons. It's not super healthy, I know that, but we love when we can create that schism, that we can break those into different groups and pit them against each other, because it works great for getting out the vote, for forming groups. One of the greatest ways to form groups is to create a common enemy. So, what in general has happened, and this is vague and very general, and I'm not trying to be super political here, but what I've seen is that the Republicans have coalesced around the older generation and said, hey, the younger generation is trying to destroy your country. And the younger generation has coalesced around the Democrats, and they're like, hey, the old people there have lost their minds and they don't know what they're doing, and you shouldn't listen to them. And again, the sad part is that it has torn apart families. It's torn apart. It's like, you can't, we're just not gonna be around you, grandma, grandpa, because you guys, you watch the news too much, you watch Fox too much, you get angry. We don't like the things that you say. We don't like how you are around your grandchildren. And so we're just not like we might come see you on a holiday maybe. And it's really just torn a rift in the culture. And so I think this beautiful picture of this family of how God's people work like a family, and how the elder men are supposed to be leading the younger men, the elder women are supposed to be leading the younger women, and they're guiding them along the paths of righteousness and truth and finding God and what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And instead we've marginalized them in a lot of ways, and we don't look to them for how to follow Jesus. And so we miss out on so much of those who have come before. Just think about it. Who are your spiritual heroes? Are they in your church? Are they, passed away, but they were in your church? Or are they, celebrity pastors, or people don't like that term, people who make podcasts and write books and project their services across all manners of internet? Do you talk to regularly? Do you have regularly older people in your life who can pour into you as a believer, who have seen some things, who have been some things, who want to disciple you? Do you have that? Um, and if not, why not? And so it is one of those things. So that's one thing, is that it's just, we've driven that wedge. And it's created sides of the aisle where the old people are suspicious and angry a lot of the times at the younger people, and the younger people just are pulled away from that. They don't want to be a part of that. So that's one of the things that's happened with like older people in the church. We've marginalized, we've pushed them. Unfortunately, that's just what's happened. Second thing is, I think there's a lot of hurt, because there are a lot of, in the recent years, and it's not super new, but in the recent years, we have had several high, visible, highly respected, well-known older pastors who have come out, where it's been like, hey, we've seen them and know that they've suffered moral failing, more so than we've seen in years past. And some of that is just the fact that it's a double-edged sword, but social media allows you to expand your ministry, and it allows you to reach more people than you ever could before. But there's also that the temptations and the risk, and you also have an opportunity to disappoint more people than you ever have before. And I think that we're seeing kind of the backlash of that is that we're learning to trust less and less pastors and long-term, well-respected pastors, and kind of form our own opinions and ways to deal with that. Like, ministers are people. I'm not trying to say, like, how dare ministers have failings. I think how we handle those things, and I'm not really wanting to get into that either. Sorry, maybe later down the road we could talk about something like that. But the way that we handle the minister's failing and how we treat it, whether we sweep it under the rug, which is what we've done with a lot of stuff. Baptists have a lot of guilt on their hands in that, obviously. Some wishing-washing and not knowing how to deal and not knowing what to deal. It has eroded the trust in an older generation, because the younger generation has seen the failings of the older generation, and often very high profile. So how do you move around that? How do you go past that? I think that for me, I think what I'm thinking through is and I think I said this, like I've been discipled by some great biblical scholars, because I read their books. I read everything they put out, and allow that to speak to my heart. And the difficulty of that is it's a one-way dialogue. I don't get a chance to talk back and kind of share, and so that's very limited in some growth areas like that. But that's kind of a lot been my older those who've gone before kind of are based around that, and so but that's not community. It's good. Like I really appreciate the things that I can read, the books those people write, and the ability that how it shapes the way that I think and what I do, and how I chase after Jesus. But it's not community. And I think that in your local body, my challenge would be for you is to find that person that God has got in that place to pour into you, and to ask, to invite someone who is older and has gone before, who walks with a limp, and say, hey, I really need somebody to mentor me. I really need somebody to guide me. And kind of humble yourself and be like, I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought I knew what was going on, but I actually need some wisdom from someone who's got more years of experience. Has got more generations that has that. And not to idolize people who are older. That just because you're old doesn't mean that you'll be a great follower of Jesus. There's people who go their whole life and never learn how to follow Jesus, and so it's not just that they're old, but find those people who have been there and they've practiced and they've done what they said they were going to do. That they were followers of Jesus, and their life reflects that. I think that's the criteria that you're looking for, is like, who crosses your path that you can find that they've been following Jesus for like 70 years, like 60 years, 65 years, 80 years. Who can do that? And then go talk to them about, like, how did you do it? How did you stay a follower of Jesus? Like, how did you do that? And what tips would you give for me? And just pick their brain and just be curious and just allow them to share, because they've walked with God a long time, and we should celebrate that. We should honor that, and we should want to know their secrets. Like, oh, you've been doing this for 40, 50, 60 years. What's the secret? What's kept you going? What have you learned? What insights do you have? And be ready to hear and listen and receive. I cannot thank enough my friends David and Rosie. The summer, I was 24. And I went to Colorado the summer after I finished my internship at the Baptist Student Ministry, and on a lark, I was like, yeah, I want to go out to this place. I don't know, and what are they doing? We don't really know. They don't really know. We're trying to figure it all out. I was like, cool, I'm there, and I showed up, and it was exactly where God needed me to be. And it was, hey, we're gonna do Bible study in the morning, and we would sometimes read the Bible and talk about it for 3 hours every morning for the first 3 weeks we were there. That's what we found ourselves doing, and it was such an accelerated time of growth for me. It exposed me to new ideas and new ways of thinking about Jesus and God, and part of that was that they had a powerful testimony that was filled with limps. They were limping as they came to when they started. I was there. They had been basically asked to almost kind of voted out of a camp that they were leading. They had they yielded control and went to do this new ministry that they didn't know what they were going to do, and so they're walking with the hurt of that. Their son had just 2 months or 3 months before going up to Colorado had a bike accident, and they had to nurse him back from that. Their daughter had been molested at a young age, had cancer, and then passed away in this accident when she was 16, driving down their driveway. They walked with a limp, but they chased after God with all their hearts, and God used them to shape me, and not just me. I mean, it was such an interesting place to serve, because it was a place of hospitality where it was like, hey, we're just doing this thing. We don't know who's going to show up, and then it was like we would just have the random people show up. We would just have people who who didn't know they needed to be there, but then they got there and they got to meet David and Rosie, and they got to meet the staff, and they got to start talking about some of the things on their heart. Just amazing God stories of just welcoming people. Rosie sitting down in a church, and a guy sitting down next to her with this picture of this girl, and he didn't really know what to say or do or who God was, and David and Rosie got to walk through this man's grief with him, and I'm forever as a 24. At that time I was 23, 24. They taught me what it looked like to be the hands and feet of Jesus, to be the presence of Jesus, to be love, in how to come back from some devastating things in life. And I at 24, I thought I had all things figured out. I thought I had the whole Jesus thing figured out. I thought I had theology figured out. I thought I knew, I was convinced that anybody that even touched a drop of alcohol was probably not saved. If you weren't at a Baptist church, you probably weren't saved. You didn't have good theology. All of that. And Dave and Rosie helped me to broaden my horizons and to see more into what really just to see all of the pictures of what it means to follow after Jesus, like just to open my eyes to new ideas and not but just and not like, oh, here's these off the wall crazy ideas, but like here's scripture and here's what that means, and let's study and let's talk about that, and here's what it means, here's how we love people, and they just for 10 years they kept going, and they were already kind of on the older side of things, but they would show up and they would open the doors and they would just let people who needed to be there be there. They didn't know they needed to hear David and Rosie's stories after breakfast, and didn't know they needed to sit around a campfire and just kind of talk and then get loved on, allow God to speak to them. I mean, you're sitting. I mean, it's an amazing place. It still is. I haven't been back in a while. It's been almost 4 years, and I miss it. But you sit at a campfire, look out across a lake, which is ringed by Rocky mountains, and it's really hard. It's really hard to do all that and not think about God. And when I think about like the older generation, pulling people. Pouring into people, discipling people. That's what I think of, and God let me have that kind of relationship for 2 summers, and that was what I needed. And in fact, my whole life trajectory was changed. Ended up going to seminary, and then. Well, if you've listened to my other podcast, you know that I was headed in one direction, and then I wasn't, and the doors that opened were camp, and the only reason I knew to go to those places was because I had worked with David and Rosie and knew about those places, and on a whim, I was like, I'm gonna go check those things out. So, here's to bring all back to here's my challenge. This is what I think I am starting to believe. Again, I haven't fleshed this all out, so sorry, but you're the one listening to me, so who's really at fault here? Just kidding. Please listen to it, or don't. I mean, Jesus, take the wheel. So here's the challenge. There are people in your life that can help you be more like Jesus, that are older than you, more experienced in the faith than you. Seek them out and ask them, and for a season, for a time, for the rest of your life, ask them to pour into you. There are friends that you are going to do life together with. Do life together. Encourage. Be in community together. And then, who is it that God who is it that God has for you to pour into? Who are you the old person to? The wise person, the one who's gone before. If you're college age, it could be a high school person. If you're a high school person, it could be a junior high kid. If you're a junior high kid, it could be like a middle schooler below junior high. If you're a young married couple, then it could be some college kids who just got married. It could be if you're a middle-aged couple, then it could be a young or just younger than you couple, and that you can pour into, that you can speak into and say, I have walked with Jesus. Here are the things that I've learned. Here's what God has taught me. And just share life experience and just share encouragement. Hey, I just want to encourage you to get closer to Jesus. And here's why. I've learned. Here's the things I've learned. And it doesn't have to be a rah-rah speech. It doesn't have to be a new rebellion. It doesn't have to be, I've got it all figured out. Because trust me, I don't. But I still know that God is saying, hey, I've got people in your life. I'm going to put them in your way. I'm going to put them in your circle of influence so that you can be a light, a city on a hill, the salt that seasons, all those things. A friend, someone that it challenges. I'm going to put those people there. What are you going to do with them, for them, because of them? And I think there's at least an option there to just ignore it all. And I just feel like God's really opened my eyes in some of those ways to be like, no, you need to see. You need to acknowledge what's going on, and you need to look for those opportunities and take advantage of them. Whose life can you pour into this week, this day, this year, this month, this decade, this half century? What is it? What is God calling you to do? Who can you pour into, and who can you be poured into? So that's the challenge. Who is it that you could be pouring into, or who could be pouring into you? And can you find those people? And can you ask that Jesus would reveal those people to you? And go do. Take advantage of it. Be what you would need. I think that one of the things that I love, and I've talked about him before, this guy named Brad Montague, and he writes, he did The Kid President, and he writes some cool, he really encourages kids and stuff like that. But one of the statements, or one of the things, the initiatives he has is be who you needed when you were younger. Be the you who you needed when you were younger, whether that's an encouraging teacher, an encouraging sponsor on a trip, a youth minister, volunteer, whatever. Be the person that you needed, because there's lots of yous out there that need you. And especially because we know that God works in that way, and he has good works prepared for you, and he has you where you are, to be a light, to be salt, to be a change maker, to be a difference bringer. So what does that look like? Pray to God that he would reveal to you the harvest of discipleship, and that he might send more workers out to participate. Thank you guys for listening. Hope that's a blessing to you. Hope you find some people. If you, again, have communications, always feel free to find me on Facebook / The Unbroken Ground, Instagram, The Unbroken Ground. You can send me an email at theunbrokenground@gmail.com. And I'm on BeReal and Snap as well underneath The Unbroken Ground. So all those ways you can reach out to me. I hope you have a blessed week. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the flip side.